Maybe. Namaskar and welcome to Weekly Global Insights, episode 308. A shout out to our viewers to like this program so it can reach its maximum potential. Today is Monday, February the 14th, and here are some of the things that are doing the rounds. First, Russia-Ukraine developments. White House says Russia has increased border forces and invasion could happen any moment. German press report that Russian invasion could come as early as Wednesday, that is the 16th of February. Biden to speak with Putin late Saturday morning on Ukraine situation after initial Kremlin preference to Monday morning call. US prepared for diplomacy or Russian aggression, says Blinken at the Quad meet. US and allies tell citizens to leave Ukraine in anticipation of invasion, and this also includes non-critical mission staff. US moves F-16 fleet from Germany to Romania as Ukraine tensions rise. Ukraine tensions stroke fear that US is taking its eyes off China and perhaps a coordinated move by Russia and China. And Russia says ultimatums and threats by the West will not work against it over Ukraine. And this is by the Russian foreign minister. We have our co-host Sridhar Chityalaji who will weigh in on this. Sridharji, excellent amount of work that has been done for putting together this thing, sir. How do you read the situation? I somehow felt that Russia will come, stay there, and then they'll go back because war is not something that it can afford. But the saber rattling continues. Your thoughts, sir?
I think my thoughts are they have achieved the objective. The objective that they have achieved is as follows. They have rattled the world. Their agenda has to be heard, and they made it very clear if the agenda is not heard, they can create a lot of trouble. Any threat of war creates three possible global disasters: the energy crisis, food crisis, and the human disaster that could hurt that part of the world. All you need to do is Russia and the whole Eastern Bloc of nations. So that's exactly what he has unleashed. And he has struck deal with another willing but a rattling partner called China. So to respond to your question, whether he will conduct a war or whether he will achieve his objective of pinching territory in Ukraine, my belief is that he will pinch the territory in Ukraine, and there are at least two specific areas which has got Russian dominant population where they believe that they want to claim independence from Ukraine. So he's going to achieve his goal of one way or the other way of pinching some territory and making sure that there is no security apparatus around the Eastern Bloc of nations. That is his prime condition. The second thing is that he will also make sure that Ukraine does not get NATO membership. That's what is going on. And the worst, sir, the worst is, what is the Western allies saying? We will do sanctions, but we will not intervene. There's no deterrence mechanism. Nowhere in the world the sanctions have worked. Russia will easily beat the sanctions with very willing and able partners in China.
And viewers, I told you a couple of things that happened which actually strengthens Russia's position. One is that they have signed a multi-year deal for gas and gasoline with China, so they have a way to make money. And the second is that all this was planned for Russia to be able to manage at $45 a barrel of crude. Today, you know that the barrel is at 90. So he has also been building up a comfortable war chest. So that is something that I'm sure the West is aware of. As to how they are going to respond to this twin threat, only time will tell. And as next news item, EU and 27 nations collectively respond to Russian foreign minister communication to each of the nations on security guarantees. Russia rejects the response. Americans, according to 𝗣𝗂𝘂𝗀𝘀𝘀, are yet to see the justification for Ukraine joining NATO. I think the ball was missed after the Crimean invasion, Sridharji, my personal opinion, at that point, if Ukraine had been allowed admission into NATO, it would have been far easier. But anyway, that's where things kind of didn't happen. Obama was useless. We are now again and again seeing the ineffectiveness, the incompetence of Mr. Barack Obama, the president, and his successor now is doing the same thing. Sridharji, this is how I feel. Please tell me, sir, I'm wrong.
It is Obama version 2. We have already mentioned. Obama called it as version 3 because his first two tenures first two terms is version 1 and version 2. He called it as a continuation of the same policy. He called it as the unfinished business. Obama was never about strengthening the United States in a foreign policy matter. He has weakened U.S. position around the world. To some extent, Trump regained momentum by two ways. One, threatening nations if they pose any kind of threat to U.S. and U.S. security interests. Second, he put enough deterrence measures to make sure that they don't wag the tail. If they did, he acted. And the third is he said, you stay where you are, I stay where I am, and we conduct business. Okay? So therefore, you don't come in, you don't kind of stir the pot, and we won't stir your pot. Okay, what did Biden do? The first thing that they did is NATO was silent, North Atlantic units were silent. They first saber-rattled Russia when the actual problem was in South China Sea. And now we have a big major crisis in the region, which is most unwarranted at this point of time. So your point that Biden's policies, a continuation of failed Obama's policies, is a reflection of what we are seeing now, and very clear that the world has woken up to the fact that there is no global leadership. There is no leadership, sir. We are now multilateral as opposed to a collaborative, unified structure of response for a world crisis.
And we have been saying this right through our daily global insights, that there have been a rash of changes once Biden administration took place. And then there were lots of flip-flops also. And we told you what the reason possibly could be. And this just goes on. It is really the country that calls itself the leader of the free world. You can't have so many flip-flops and so much directionless decision making. Anyway, let's go on. India steps up global diplomatic offensive as External Affairs Minister makes his rounds. India's EAM in Qatar completes strategic discussions on energy, investments, Afghanistan, and security. India, along with Quad foreign ministers, discussed Chinese threats in Indo-Pacific and Russian challenges in Ukraine. In taking a dig at Chinese counterparts, he makes it clear Quad is about cooperation and addressing regional challenges and not against any nation. Indian Foreign Minister will soon be in Munich to attend the Munich Security Conference meetings, and Germany is the current president of G7, and India is expected to be invited to G7 following the footsteps of United States, UK, and France. Sridharji, India certainly is among the few, and I was pleasantly surprised that India took up the issue of where the virus originated. And also now people are grudgingly admitting that the mRNA approach to coming with the vaccine is perhaps not the most optimal, and that Covaxin has a better coverage against variants, everything being grudgingly accepted. But you can see that for global acceptance, for India-made Covaxin, it is like pulling teeth. Everywhere they are putting blockades, trying to prevent it, because this lucrative market that has become the vaccines is now under threat because they're ineffective. First it was Chinese vaccines, and now we are seeing that people are saying that Pfizer is not effective against Omicron. So given all these things, India is playing a very important role, and I'm hoping that in the days and weeks to come, the world starts seeing that here is the responsible country on the world stage, a leader who also leads by example, and that at least in the external security, they have been fairly effective, the Indian government, sir.
Indeed, sir. I think that you have touched a number of topics. I think your observations around your observations around the COVID response and the Indian methodology of dealing with COVID. I think we have covered quite extensively
Yes.
last year sorry, my apologies. Last year in the DGI programs around the vaccine issues as to why this mRNA method of treatment is ineffective. And I think you have made your point. The fact that in the United States we still have 29 million active cases. All you need to do is look at the top 10 nations in active cases and look at India in terms of the number of active cases. It becomes very, very evident that notwithstanding the fact that India has not made its way into the booster as yet, because of the protocols, the Indian vaccines have been very effective, to your point, that there has been a complete vaccine mismanagement. It seems to be more stuff is around making money rather than the treatment of the issue. Now, with regard to the leadership, it's very, very important to point out that just as President Trump suffered right throughout his tenure, and notwithstanding the fact the Indian government is in the 6th year, which is the nation in the world that today is most sought after? It is India. Okay, we'll cover some of these points. But to come to the Quad, in the Quad meeting, which was the voice of assent, which was the voice of the world, it was India taking on and saying what Quad is about and what Quad's objectives are about and what broadly it is trying to accomplish, and rebutting the Chinese point of view, which is to say nations can make noise, but nations have choices to make and nations have things to address from a global perspective and as well as from a global prosperity point of view. So it was very refreshing to see a forthright statement coming from Australia, from the Indian External Affairs Minister. It's good to see. I mean, you covered the Qatar issue because natural gas has become, one of the biggest, opportunities. Now you find that Qatar has done great deal with countries like India and other places, to the extent Qatar is no longer an option for Ukraine, which actually is creating a problem for the world as to how to deal with the potential Ukraine kind of a situation. But they did bring this up, and it was from that forum that this unfortunate statement was made by Blinken, which is to say, we are ready for diplomacy, we are ready for aggression, and in both circumstances, we will appropriately deal. How you appropriately deal? No, you give more sanctions. It doesn't work.
And viewers, you probably already know this, but the area that most likely Russia will try to annex is the Donetsk area, which is on the eastern Ukraine, and it is bordering Russia. That's where I think there could be some mischief. Let's wait and see what happens. India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar travels to Paris to attend the India-Pacific Forum, where India, France, Australia are expected to announce a trilateral group to address Indo-Pacific strategic issues. Indonesia is another special invitee to the forum, and it's working with India and Australia to announce another trilateral partnership with focus on South China, Malacca Straits, Indian Ocean as the focus, and Indonesia to announce purchase of French military planes at this session. Indian EAM, that is Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar, meets the Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs and commence discussions to express solidarity and further boost economic and security ties after the BrahMos acquisition. And stepping up the offensive, Indian envoy says in UN Security Council that we have nations and leaders in the world who continue to patronize bin Laden as a martyr. This is in line with the UN report that claims recognition of Taliban would embolden terrorists around the world. Now, we also have to wonder if China is building rapport with Tibetan population living close to border near LAC to forge support in the event of a Chinese transgression near Arunachal. Again, I have given you a lot to ponder, Sridharji, but the overarching thing is now India is starting to make its own multilateral alliances, and also now I'm hearing something else. Let's talk about that in just a little bit. Sridharji, this is really good that India is now stepping up to the plate, showing leadership and saying that, look, we are the people here who are the direct sufferers of all these aggressions and excursions by this superpower called China, and this is how we are going to combat it, and that's very good to see, sir.
It's actually excellent to see. It's very conspicuous, the global footprint absence of United States and the gap subtly but and effectively being filled by India. Imagine that not too long ago, there was RACUS around the AUKUS, which is Australia, UK, and the US partnership. Who is the bridge who has brought these three nations together? India. So India, Australia, and France are going to now work together and around the multilateral security, specifically around the Indian Ocean and some of the Pacific islands where France has interest. It's an amazing development, a trilateral development, where Australia is saying we are looking for the Indian leadership. Now, switching a little bit to the coming down to the Indian Ocean and the Malacca area, you find Indonesia and India and Australia. Historically, Australia and Indonesia, they are allies, but they also have suspicion. One of the reasons why Indonesia expressed some concern is why is Australia acquiring special nuclear submarine capabilities, and what is its kind of an intention? Is it well beyond deterrence of the Chinese? Now, the fact that India again has brought these three nations together, and the fact that France is also working with Indonesia, no, there's no doubt at all the hand of India is visible in some of the armaments and some of the plane acquisition that's happening between Indonesia and France, Indonesia acquiring the French. So you can see that subtly and as well as explicitly, India has raised its hand and demonstrating that it is a strategic partner both in defense as well as in trade as well as in deterrence. It's extremely pleasing that such a posture has been taken. There is no voice, there is no visibility of Japan. It is India, and it is India, and it is India at these forums.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. And now you can expect China to respond almost immediately to all these moves, and they have slammed the Quad meeting in Australia. Russia says Japan is whipping up hysteria in Kuril Islands row, with China stepping up its attack on Senkaku. So Kuril Islands is something that is a dispute between Japan and Russia. As a matter of fact, many may not know this. The day Japan surrendered in 1945, Russia declared war against Japan, saying that Kuril Islands is ours, and that has not been resolved since then. And Senkaku is this other set of islands that is a dispute between China and Japan. And have China and Russia done an energy deal that would guarantee tenfold gas supply to China, increasing potential invasion of Taiwan after Olympics? Absolutely. We talked about this with 𝗣𝗚𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀. Sridharji, see, a lot of information is there on that particular hangout. Like, for example, there was a problem that Russia tried to do. Russia wasn't sure that China, it wanted to lay the lines just for China. So what they tried to do was they tried to lay the lines all the way to the Vladivostok east coast so that they could supply natural gas and oil to not only China, but also Japan and South Korea. So when they did that, the line length to China became longer. It was mostly in Siberia. It was cold. They had some pressure problems. So anyway, looks like they have figured something out now wherein they can start doing it fairly quickly. In my book, sir, I think Russia has sort of become a little bit more higher in terms of the pecking order as far as China is concerned. I mean, we used to call them the junior partner. I think they are trying to kind of, saying, no, we are not the junior partner. We are equal partner. I don't know what you think, sir. There's some change has happened. China has become a little weaker. Russia has become a little stronger. How do you see it?
Well, I think the Russia is very clear. I think people forget the fact that Mr. Vladimir Putin is ex-KGB. Okay, he was an ex-KGB head. He knows the insights of the world. Who is his foreign minister? Sergei Lavrov. Sergei Lavrov has been the foreign minister for almost 2 decades. One of the most astute diplomats in the world. He knows how to navigate. He knows how to negotiate. if you see the body language in any kind of joint press conference with United States, you will come to the conclusions very quickly as to who is running the show, and it is Sergey. Now, to your point around Russia, I think the world is missing the point. Okay, it is not about it is a bigger partner or smaller partner. Russia is aiming to regain and recreate the old United Union or United USSR, Union of States of Socialistic Republic. The USSR is going to be recreated. They are protecting the Central Asia. They are protecting their relationship with Azerbaijan. They are preserving the relationship with Belarus. They are circling Ukraine. They do not want any military footprint in the old Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia, and Lithuania, and I forget the name of the third, Lithuania, Latvia, and what's the third one, sir? Third one escapes my memory. So the three states.
Estonia? Estonia?
Estonia, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia. So the Baltic states which are there, they do not want in the old Eastern Poland, and as well as in Romania, which historically used to be, they do not want any military footprint of the NATO. So you are beginning to see the ascent of USSR under the eyes of Vladimir Putin. There is a very strong Russian sentiment. People forget close to 40% of the people in the old Central Asian republics speak Russian in the second language, the five. Okay, so there's a very strong sentiment. Azerbaijan has a very strong sentiment. Maybe Georgia has some renegades, but still they have sentiments to Russia. So he is not concerned about China in any manner. He wants to make sure that China doesn't entertain any aspirations as far as the old Soviet bloc is concerned. That's where he is going. And just like we had in the Obama era, losing out and missing on the old South China Sea, the world is going to miss out on the old USSR bloc with a very weak Western Europe and very, very weak world. This is where the strategic diplomacy of India has played a part. India has not antagonized Russia. India has not antagonized the Central Asian republics. India has not antagonized. And still, in Europe, the two nations that still have a talking relationship and maintaining diplomatic footprint is France and Germany. UK has taken a very offensive, very similar to the typical what we call as the Anglo-Saxon posture. So you have Britain losing out, but France, Germany, and the old Indian kind of a hand is visible in basically maintaining a soft posture. And I think we may as well see the re-emergence of the old Russian bloc and little renegade nations helping Russia to achieve that goal.
One line comes to mind, Sridharji. India seems to be adopting Sarva Desha Samabhava. And that is essentially like treat everybody the same. Of course, there are exceptions even to that. China is not going to be treated the same way, nor is Pakistan. But what you can change your friends, but you can't change your neighbors. That is the reality. And we have to see how this plays out. Certainly, some of the moves have been a pleasant surprise. And let's hope that the world becomes more stable. That's my concern, because things are now beginning to come out of this 2 years that people have lost. You blink your eye and 2 years are just like that gone. And we are all trying to get back to what used to be some semblance of normalcy. And now here you have all these, threats, geographical threats looming over the horizon. Let's move on to ISIS. ISIS is going to appoint a battle-hardened Iraqi as the next likely successor to Qureshi. And Iran has announced long-range ballistic missiles capable of attacking US bases, says Israel. Israel launches strikes against Syria and after a missile attack from Syria. I think it was from Syria, or it could have been one of the other countries, because all these are sort of like places from where it is believed that Iran and perhaps somebody else is staging, missiles directing missiles at Israel. Sridharji, you know this better than I do. Can you please help us understand what is going on? Of course, ISIS continue on. More importantly, the missile attacks.
The missile attacks have definitely come from Syria. This is where we covered this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. There is this soft understanding between between USSR or Russia, and I use the word USSR because I think I see the imminent presence of USSR very, very soon, or the old USSR very, very soon. Then you find the Russians saying, okay, if you have terrorists, Israel, you go, because the terrorists are a problem for us also, especially the Islamic terrorists, according to them. They do not sympathize with them at all. So therefore, I think you see that Israel is not allowing any of these rockets to be, and most of them, who are most of these people? They are the renegades or the surrogates of the Iranian regime. So they are going after and taking them out in a progressive manner. So that's where it's coming from. Well, did we not have the al-Baghdadi and the resurgence of the ISIS during the Biden period? Well, how did Obama period? Now we are beginning to see the same resurgence of the ISIS, not just we haven't covered Sahel, but it's happening in Sahel, but it's very much happening in Iraq. How is it happening? Because United States, one of the policies of Biden was to withdraw from Iraq. Lock, stock, and barrel, to barring few, he quit Iraq end of last year, okay, along with Afghanistan. So they say that this guy was not taken down by USC, that Qureshi. He blew himself up. Now what do? They take an Iraqi ex-general, will soon probably know the name, being appointed. So ISIS is strong, resurgent, and there is no eye being kept in Iraq or in Iran. And the only nation which is following this is Israel. This is the triple I, and we are one of the first people, in fact, the first people to point out that the triple I could be one of the pivotal points of inflection in this jihadi crisis.
Absolutely, Sridharji. And viewers, we have been looking at how best to give you news as it breaks. And we realize that once a week perhaps is too less. And we are going to try and do 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So the next episode will be on Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. IST, just like today's program. And I hope you guys will support us just as strongly as you have been doing thus far. Now let's take a look at what is happening in Canada. The truck protest that kicked off in Ottawa is now spreading to Europe, Australia, New Zealand against the vaccine mandates. Senator Rand Paul urges truck protesters to hold similar rallies in the US cities. US Vice President Mike Pence tells World Peace Rally that the world must face up to North Korean provocations, and Republican lawmakers say the Department of Homeland Security warning of the proliferation of false or misleading narratives in its latest terrorism threat advisory bulletin is a state-sponsored threat to free speech. This is a very serious allegation that the Republicans are laying at the door of the DHS. The DHS, we all know, has not covered itself in glory. The Biden administration had the strange situation where it was announced that the vice president would be responsible for the border policy, yet the vice president didn't even go there. And then it was all DHS which was doing all the thing. And slowly but steadily, what did the DHS do? Re-implement what Trump was doing all along. So this kind of flip-flop policy is what is really hurting this Biden administration. And on top of that, a total carte blanche for many people to indulge in corruption. By the way, we are going to have a series of episodes on corruption, starting with the very top, Biden's karma. It is coming to you in a couple of days' time. Stay tuned. You will understand how corrupt this person is, how much money he tried to make through his son with China, with just China. In the days and weeks leading up to the 2016 election, we will give you all that stuff with data, with PowerPoint slides, with an expert. So stay tuned on that one. Sridharji, Take it away, sir, on this Freedom Convoy.
The Freedom Convoy, the left starts, the right amplifies. Remember where this truck episodes began and galvanized the nation and throttled the economic? It is in India, if you have forgotten.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the tricks of the trade have now spread to the right. And so they're saying, you do it, we can do it. We are bigger, stronger, better, and we're doing it. They have throttled that. You see, the reason is the truck drivers were one of the targets in terms of the vaccine mandate. And they basically said, you are eating into our livelihood. There's nothing that is for you to establish that this helps to stop the stuff. If it is helping to stop the stuff, how can you have 29 million active COVID cases on a population of 300 million plus in the United States? So that happened. So what does Rand Paul say? Natural immunity is something that science seems to have forgotten. By locking up people and by doing this and by enforcing them to do this, you have forgotten that there are people who are stronger and who can deal with it, just as what India has done, which is one of the reasons why you find India battling this better, notwithstanding the provocations of the left media. So here in what you're seeing is now the Ottawa campaign, not just confined to the Northern America, it's now gone into Australasia, it has gone into Europe, and it is spreading fast because people are just fed up, are locked up in their houses with no scientific evidence to point out that helps them to alleviate this problem.
And markets get into a tailspin as inflation soars to new heights, and with 4 hikes or at least 3 rate hikes predicted this year in the United States. This is our last item for the day, and as always, Sridharji is a market watcher, he's a banker, VC, venture capitalist, Ulagam Sutrum Valiban, who is always on the move around the world. Sridharji, this is now beginning to start from United States, and 3 or 4 hikes, that's a little drastic, sir.
Inflation is at the highest since 1940, 7.8%. That's number one. Number two, we have 7.8%. Our benchmark rate for inflation is 2%. That's the rate that Fed keeps. So we stretched it to 4%, and then we had even 8% in some months in the late last year. So one rate is not enough, sir. There's going to be 2-3 rate cuts that is looming, pretty much looming in the horizon.
I think you meant rate increases, sir.
The rate increases. Sorry, not rate cuts. My apologies. The rate increases. The 10-year treasury is already around 2%. I think you touched on that point of the gas is around $90. So if the gas is around $90, rate is around 2%, there has also been a wage increase. All it means is that and then you have excess money supply stuck into the system, and that is still flowing, or only means price rises in the midst of a global threat of war right around the corner.
Thank you very much, Sridharji, and viewers will be back on Wednesday, but we do need your support. Please forward, share, and like our videos. Give it to your family and friends. Many in the world are now waking up to the dire scenario that whatever they are going to make, whatever their savings is not going to be worth squat because of the inflation that is raging. And this is not going to go away anytime soon, not with 2 threats of war looming around the world. So this is going to be a turbulent ride, and we feel it is our duty and responsibility to give you the accuracy what is happening, especially in the US, because US is where things kind of started, and that is where things are going to flow. US is the only country that will probably stand up to, with any amount of strength, the twin threat that the world is looking at, Russia and China. And as always, Sridharji, it's a pleasure. Welcome back, sir. We are going to have 3 days a week program. And once again, viewers, thank you so much, and namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much, and glad to be back and glad to be getting on with things. There's a lot of topics that we covered today. Please go back and watch some of the videos of last year. Every crisis spot we have covered extensively, be it Senkaku, be it Kuril Islands, be it Sahel, be it some of the issues around, you will find if you want to re-jog the memory, go back and look at some of the videos and support PGurus and support our program as well, so that we can continue to bring the best aspects of what is going on to you.
Namaskar. Thank you so much, sir.